Salman Rushdie, after publishing satanic verses and after the Ayatollah's fatwa for his execution, wrote this: "Doubt, it seems to me, is the central condition of a human being in the 20th century. We can no longer have a fixed, certain knowledge of anything. Everything is pervaded by doubt and uncertainty. And surely he is right. A common reaction to a decision or a suggested course of action is, where is the evidence to support doing this?" So we could call St. Thomas the patron saint of our age. We maybe feel comforted by St. Thomas and align ourselves with him, more perhaps than Peter or John. For the disciples of Jesus, his death wasn't merely a horrific execution of a dear friend. It was the end of their vision, the passion in which they had invested years of life. The death of Jesus must have felt like a giant betrayal or cruel trick. But then on Easter morning, some women claimed that the tomb where Jesus had been buried was empty and that they had actually seen him alive. Nonsense. Thomas must have figured that kind of thing just doesn't happen. Nothing but wishful thinking. Yet that evening, Jesus appeared to the other disciples. When Thomas returned, they excitedly reported to him, "We've seen the Lord." Now we don't know where Thomas was. Perhaps he was walking, trying to come to terms with the tragic events and what he was going to do. And do you blame him? Thomas must have felt defeated and, at the same time, devastated. Thomas wasn't going to fall into the same trap of mere illusions. All this excitement again? No way. Likewise, some of us have followed Christ and then suddenly our lives have fallen apart. Our marriage hit the rocks, or we have had a health scare, or lost our job, or our teenager got involved with the wrong crowd. No matter how we try to rationalize what happened, the truth is that sometimes we have felt that God has let us down. And no matter how much others try to encourage us, we are just not sure we're ready to trust him again. To be honest, if I had been in Thomas's shoes, I'm not sure I would have been able to accept the testimony of the other disciples as well. You see, some people are skeptics. Some think a lot, maybe too much. Some don't find it easy to put their faith in anything. So putting ourselves in Thomas's place, I wonder, wouldn't it have made just as much sense to suppose that the disciples had had too much to drink, or that they had seen some sort of ghost, or that their grief had overwhelmed their senses? Whether Thomas should have believed or not, he was, at any rate, bluntly honest about where he was. He didn't pretend. He told the truth. Was he doubting Thomas? Well, perhaps, but even more clearly, he was honest Thomas. Thomas, in fact, turned out to be more honest than some of the other disciples. The others, we might assume, were happy to go along for the resurrection ride. But in Matthew 28, we read something quite startling. The disciples have followed Jesus' orders to go to Galilee, their home ground, and meet him there. This is what it says at the beginning of verse 16. Then the 11 disciples left for Galilee, going to the mountain where Jesus had told them to go. When they saw him, they worshipped him. But some of them still doubted. Did you catch that? But some of them still doubted. For 8 days Thomas was confused and dismissed the other disciples' claim. Then after 8 days, Jesus finally appeared to the disciples in Thomas's presence. He addressed the doubter directly. Put your finger here and see my hands. Put your hand into the wound in my side. Don't be faithless any longer. Believe. Do you know what's missing here? The rebuke, the guilt, the lecture on not doubting. It's not here. Jesus doesn't reprimand Thomas for his unbelief. Rather, he gently and mercifully offers Thomas exactly what he had wanted. Jesus met Thomas right where he was, and he offered himself to Thomas. Here, touch me and believe. It's curious, isn't it, that we're never told whether or not Thomas actually touched Jesus' wounds, but the silence of the text suggests he didn't. Confronted by the gracious presence and offer of Jesus, Thomas exclaimed, "My Lord and my God." He didn't need to touch Jesus after all, because the presence of his Lord had touched his heart. Importantly, Thomas said, "My Lord and my God." This makes him the first person in the Gospels, perhaps even the first person in all of history to confess Jesus not only as Lord, but also as God. Doubting Thomas, or better yet, honest Thomas, became faithful Thomas, believing Thomas, and bold Thomas. No matter where we are in our relationship with Christ today, the good news is that he meets us in that very place. In his time and in his way, he graciously draws us near to his heart, so we might know his love and grace again. The one who gave his life for us so that we might be forgiven, the one who was raised so that you might live forever, seeks a genuine, honest relationship with you. He wants not just a religious performance, but an intimate relationship and friendship. So no matter where you are on the road of faith, let the risen Christ walk with you today, tomorrow, and every day from now on. Amen.